Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video where today we return with more of our F1 Manager career mode. Yes, we return to the Japanese Grand Prix, of course, round 18 of 22, just 5 races to go of this series. And yeah, back at Suzuka at last, of course. This is the first video I'm doing after, of course, the Singapore Grand Prix. What an interesting and weird race that was yesterday in real life, but desperately trying to obviously keep ahead of real life Formula 1 at the moment as well there. But of course, yeah, if you missed out on the last video from this series, of course, also in Singapore, would highly recommend going back and checking it out. It was probably a more dramatic end to the Singapore Grand Prix than the real life event was. It was very, very close. Of course, we've got the new 1.08 patch on F1 Manager as well, which is making things a whole lot better, a whole lot sort of more sensible and realistic as well, which, you know, I'm really now enjoying the game a whole lot more as well, which is always, hopefully, a good sign as well. But yeah, I mean, constructors-wise, of course, we wrapped that up a couple of races ago back at Monza. Drivers' Championship-wise, though, Charles Leclerc reopens up the gap to 17 points at the top of the table. 5 races to go, 125 points available. 130 points available. So this weekend we could eliminate Max Verstappen from the championship hunt. It is still technically a 3-way scrap for World Championship glory at the moment, but it is a case of when rather than if Max Verstappen is going to get knocked out of that championship fight. Of course, if you're new around here as well, please do make sure you leave a like and get yourself subscribed. It massively helps out the channel. And of course, now we're into October. We've got 3 months to go of 2022. We're still, of course, aiming for that goal of 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So yeah, it'd be greatly appreciated if you could help us get one step closer. But nothing too exciting, of course, to look forward to before this weekend. We've got some more underfloors getting sorted. We have also got a fresh power unit. I think we'll need to go into the back of Carlos Sainz's car, if I remember correctly. We are down to 48%, so we might be able to get away with that one for one more weekend. But yeah, let's get into it then. Japanese Grand Prix time, back finally at Suzuka. I'm quite looking forward to this one. Hopefully you guys are as well.
Konnichiwa from the Suzuka circuit in Japan. This unique track is a favourite home for motorsports, and it welcomes us back this weekend. Get ready for exhilaration and speed with the Japanese Grand Prix. Drivers will battle it out this weekend on the snaking turns of Suzuka, the only figure-of-8 track in Formula 1. High-speed downforce will be the name of the game here, if teams want to secure a place on that podium. This is it. We're down to the last few races of the season, and it's time for that final push. Who will be crowned champion at the end of it all? We'll find out soon enough. There's nothing like a race weekend in Formula 1.
Right, well, here we are then, finally back at Suzuka, of course, the Japanese Grand Prix, and fingers crossed this weekend, you know, it's a track with no room for error, so we might see, you know, we've seen our drivers occasionally in recent weekends. Of course, Sainz actually span or binned it 2 weekends in a row. Luckily, neither of them retired the car, but we're also going to potentially see a lot of rain come Sunday, and the last time it rained on, well, the only time it rained on F1 Manager during a Grand Prix, things did not go well for us. It seems to be sort of the one dent in what has been a pretty strong Ferrari set of armour this year. But of course, going to try and tweak a few things around, of course, with the engine still. We're just going to obviously be lobbing both drivers onto older engine components, things like that, of course, trying to save them as best as possible. Of course, we may as well use the old engines, because, well, why not at the end of the day? So we'll make a few tweaks, things like that, and then we'll send both cars out. Right, well, back finally then at Japan. Of course, Red Bull, I'm sure, will be looking for a strong weekend here, of course, for their, it still technically is their power unit supplies home Grand Prix. Things are a little bit weird down at the world of Red Bull, but yeah, we've got both cars going out pretty much immediately here. We're just going to actually set them both just to conserve a little bit more. Then one of you guys left me a tip in the comments that, of course, if you just let them sort of save it a little bit more, then, of course, they'll use less of the engine wear as well. So we are having to think about these things a little bit towards the end of the year. I don't want engine penalties to become too big of an issue in the final few races, as we're less than a minute into free practice, and already Carlos Sainz is trying to battle his teammate. That's not helpful early on. Charles Leclerc not happy with the car set up there, but clearly 12 laps is about the time Leclerc needs to try and get some important data there. Hopefully we'll get confirmation from Sainz about how he's feeling. But yeah, we've tried again, as always, we tried some different setup philosophies early on here in FP1, but Leclerc's certainly not happy with his. A few more tweaks being made, just under 20 minutes left on the clock. Charles Leclerc much happier with the setup now, so we'll bring the car in, of course, at the end of this lap and just make a few last subtle tweaks. Sainz have had to put him on a slightly longer run, just so we can try and get all the data we need out of him. But still, yeah, he's been pretty radio silent so far this session. Oh, no. Right, well, we got some information from Sainz. Oh, no. I might have cancelled his call-in so we could get more data out of him, and then realised he's got no fuel. That's the first time I've done that on F1 Manager so far. Oh, dearie me. We've still got Leclerc changing his setup. But note to self, it's far more helpful to get the car back to the pit lane rather than trying to get a tiny bit more data out of your driver. 2 thousandths between them, though, so far, so things have been pretty competitive. Well, there we go, then. When all is said and done here from from free practice from the Japanese Grand Prix, look how many penalties there are heading into this weekend. There 1, 2, 3, 8 cars with penalties this weekend here at Suzuka. It's just going to be Sainz, Leclerc, Verstappen, I think, at the front of the field there that have got out of it scot-free. Hamilton as well. I could have a big chance to close back up to Perez in the championship. But, yeah, interesting free practice 1 result. I did make the cardinal sin of a mistake on F1 Manager. But let's get into qualifying then. Fingers crossed we give the cars enough fuel. Formula 1 is finally back in 2022, and now you can rep your favourite teams. Of course, using the F1 store, every team now has merch lineups available, whether you're an Aston Martin fan, a Williams fan, Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, the choice is completely up to you. But yeah, check out the F1 merch store down below for all the official releases from all of the teams. And of course, as always, if you use our links as well, you massively help support the channel. So yeah, give it a look and see if there's anything you like.
With FP3 all finished, it's time to move on to qualifying. While everyone will be talking about the battle for pole, there is still so much to be contested here today. Qualifying presents a tremendous opportunity for all 10 constructors and their drivers, as a strong performance now will put them in good stead for tomorrow's race. So get yourselves comfortable, it's going to be quite the ride.
Right, well, there we go then. Having a look at our final free practice results. Charles Leclerc ahead of Verstappen and Carlos Sainz there. But yeah, look how many I can't get over that, how many grid penalties there are this weekend at Japan. We need to just make sure, though, that we put the engine back into both of our cars as well, which is going to be quite critical before we jump into qualifying. And I have once again forgotten how I do that, but we will make that change before we get into it. Right, well, here we are then, back at Japan here for qualifying for the Japanese Grand Prix, of course. Suzuka, such a legendary circuit, as mentioned by Crofty, of course, the only track still in Formula 1 with a figure of 8 layout, I guess is probably the right word to try and use here. But heading down in towards turn 1, there goes Charles Leclerc flying through the first corner there. Sainz a little bit further back, so we should be able to watch most of Leclerc's lap unfold. And then, of course, we'll compare with Carlos Sainz. He's just got to be a bit careful. He has got both Mercedes cars actually closing up to him on the mini-map. It's all nice and tidy through the first few corners we go. We have seen Verstappen closer and closer to our cars at the moment, as we've got yellow flags out in Sector 2. That is a Red Bull. And is that Max Verstappen that's immediately made a mistake? Yes, it is Verstappen out of qualifying for the Japanese Grand Prix there. So that's hopefully made our job a whole lot easier. Let's have a look. What has Verstappen done down at the hairpin? Must have been a monstrous lockup. Has he done a caveat from a couple of years ago? He has made it into the hairpin itself, but big lockup and right into the corner of the tyre wall there. Dangerous, scary crash for Max Verstappen. But that's made our job a little bit easier than in qualifying. Of course, he was really, to be honest, the only threat we had at the moment, as we'll just ride with Charles Leclerc then, as Carlos Sainz is going to start his lap. Just make sure he does stay out ahead of those Mercedes. There as Hamilton sets the pace on a 1:28.8. We should be close to a second up on that, as Alonso slots between Hamilton and his former teammate Valtteri Bottas. Charles Leclerc, though, purple in Sector 1, only green, though, in Sector 2. So, yeah, clearly, you know, this isn't going to be the easiest session in the world. There is Perez, I think, got a little bit held up, of course, Leclerc had to deal with those yellow flags as well as Zhou Guanyu just shy of a second off of Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes there. But out of the final corner, Leclerc still goes fastest, 27.9. That's what we love to see there from Charles Leclerc, as it looks like Sainz just having to deal with a Valtteri Bottas in the way in his, Alfa Romeo car there, as Sainz, of course, still on an older power unit than Charles Leclerc at the moment, so we have often seen Leclerc have a little bit more qualifying pace than Sainz in recent weekends. I mean, we've seen, to be honest, Leclerc have ferocious pace all season long over one lap qualifying. Sainz has been, since the summer break, a whole lot closer and has often actually been able to sneak away those pole positions from under his teammate's nose. But Sainz at the moment, 2/10 down in Sector 1, 2/10 down in Sector 2, so he stood still, mitigating any major errors. Finish this session, it will currently be sat in P2, but it is going to be a little way away from Charles Leclerc there as he heads out the final corner at the Casio Triangle. Carlos Sainz up towards the line. That's going to be P2, a 1:28.4 if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, decent time there by Carlos Sainz, but half a second away from Charles Leclerc. Is not quite, I'm sure, where he wanted to be. Well, like I said, life has been made a whole lot easier this weekend by virtue of Max Verstappen's huge lockup. I mean, that must have been a brake failure for the Red Bull there, and we know Sergio Perez has got grid penalties as well, so it could be a pretty comfortable start to the race at the front of the field. Of course, anything can happen on Formula One's return back to Suzuka, but here goes Charles Leclerc then to start his final lap of qualifying here around this 3.6 mile circuit, if I remember correctly there, breaking down it towards turn 1 there. Of course, the first corner really just setting himself up for the second. Speeds in excess of 200 miles an hour there as we went in towards that first apex from Charles Leclerc as he swings his way through the S's. Of course, that famous interview between Sebastian Vettel and Michael Schumacher. Seb asking Michael, how does he go so quickly through the S's? And Michael kind of just went, I go from A to B in whatever way works. And yeah, clearly those words really did help Sebastian Vettel, because I think he is at least a 3-time winner around the Suzuka circuit there. But Charles Leclerc improving once more in Sector 1 there, purple fastest once again. Are we going to see Carlos Sainz be able to get any closer to his teammate there? 30.9 once again, a 31.0 though, so Sainz is also improving. He's not quite going to let Leclerc absolutely dominate this one, as Alonso now staying in at P6 there. Perez, actually I completely forgot about Checo there, suddenly a 10th away from Charles Leclerc, so it will be a Ferrari by the looks of it on pole position. Ocon less than a 10th away from his very, very experienced, of course, Spaniard teammate. But as we've watched just the next 3 cars come through, we've got both Mercs and both Alfa Romeos there. Hamilton will improve there, stays P4. George Russell, we might see him improve as well there. Zhou Guanyu will stay in at P9 there. George Russell looks like he'll stay P5. But Charles Leclerc, purple Sector 1, purple Sector 2. It's going to be even further on pole there. A 27.5 is an absolutely insane lap time from the Monegasque driver there, as Carlos Sainz will line up P2 on the grid by virtue of Perez's penalties. But where are we going to see? Will he be able to make the impression and still finish P2 on the road there? Carlos Sainz out the final corner. He will slot back up into P2 there, so bravo to both drivers, of course. That session a lot less dramatic with Max Verstappen not really competing, but it's another 1-2 for Ferrari. It's another front row lockout there. I mean, yeah, Charles Leclerc able just to find pace as the session unfolded there, and Sainz pretty stagnant around the high 27s, low 28s there. Couldn't quite get the lap in where it mattered, but of course changeable conditions on the horizon for the Japanese Grand Prix today. Let's get into it then and see what we can do. This channel is proudly sponsored by Bybit, the official crypto partner of Red Bull's Formula 1 team. I've been using their platform for my personal crypto savings over the last few months, and when they got in touch to support the channel, I was super excited. Currently, they're offering you guys a special new promo for the first 100 of you to deposit $10 or more onto the platform. You'll get another $10 free. Also, 5 lucky winners will get their initial deposit doubled up to $1,000. That means if you deposited $1,000 onto the platform using my codes below, you could be within a chance to get another $1,000 completely free. We've seen the landscape around crypto drastically change over the last couple of years, and I genuinely believe it holds an important place in our future. However, please be careful as always when trading, as you are liable to lose money. But if you're interested and you're 18 or older, click the link down below to get started and see why Red Bull and myself, as well as thousands of others, trust Bybit as their crypto.
The time has come to fight it out. It's race day.
These past few days, Ferrari have been absolutely thrilling their fans. Now let's see if they can make the Tifosi proud by capitalizing on that grid position. This weekend, Red Bull displayed promise during qualifying. Now they need to capitalize on their grid position and get a good race under their belts. And the sun is shining bright here today. This is perfect weather for teams and drivers alike to show us what they're capable of.
The Suzuka circuit is primed and ready to see Formula One's finest battle it out.
Right, well, here we are then, ready for the Japanese Grand Prix, and the rain isn't here for the start, which makes me incredibly nervous there. Are we going to be able to have a look at the race report there? Pre-race report, nothing too exciting, but pre-race report, let's have a look. What are they saying? Oh no! It's meant to stay dry early on. There is guaranteed almost a thunderstorm in the middle of the race there, so they're meant to cool off slightly and then get even worse again. It's going to be a dry to wet to dry race this afternoon. This is really not what we want to see there. Is what we're going to do. We're going to put Leclerc on a set of softs. He will then hopefully make it to the wet period, but we are going to try and cover all the bases, and we are going to put Sainz onto a set of mediums at the start of the Grand Prix there. So we'll box him onto softs if he can, if obviously by somehow he can't make it to the wet period here. But things are about to get interesting then in the Japanese Grand Prix. I've always got to try and remember to actually save my strategies on this game as well. But yeah, this one could go any which way there. I mean, any of those drivers with grid penalties as well could find themselves still back at the front. I have to not listen to Charles Leclerc. That is the key this weekend, as I'm also just going to give both drivers a little bit more front wing there, just to try and help them out, obviously, when the rain does most likely arrive. I mean, Sainz is already running pretty high wings there, so we'll leave him where he's at. But yeah, let's get into it then. Japanese Grand Prix time. Things are about to get nervous here. We cannot bottle another wet race. Let's get into it, though, here at Suzuka.
As the sun continues to shine, it seems like nothing can dampen the mood of excitement here at the track. And there is Charles Leclerc. They're in P1. Let's see if they can take advantage of that position. And further back, there's Sainz. A second place start for them today. They're in with a real chance. Will their hard work pay off today? The drivers are warmed up. They're ready to go here at the Japanese Grand Prix. And it's lights out and away we go.
Good start there from Charles Leclerc, but we've got to be a bit careful for Sainz as we head down towards turn 1, because Lewis Hamilton, I'm sure, will try and be feisty on that set of soft compound tyres there. Sainz will get the elbows out down at the first turn, and I think he will only just hang on there ahead of Lewis Hamilton. I mean, further down the order, Verstappen, of course, promoted back up to P6 because of all those grid penalties as well. But Charles Leclerc early on knows he needs to try and romp away at the start of this race there. Looking further down the order, George Russell starts in P9. Perez down in 19th or 18th place there for the start of this one. So the second Red Bull. I mean, I'm saying he's out of it, but of course that is definitely not certainly going to be the case here today. Of course, anything can happen in a wet race here at Suzuka, as you can see already. Esteban Ocon trying to get his elbows out with Lewis Hamilton as well there, so that's helpful for us. Of course, just want to see both of our drivers break free at the start of the race there, but I think we've just got to try and build up a gap there. We really don't want our two cars battling each other early on. I don't want to bring team orders into things too early, but I also do want our cars to really try and build up a gap at the start here, because of course when I do inevitably make a mistake and listen to Charles Leclerc, then of course we need a bit of time behind us to make sure that the other cars can't apply too much pressure there. As I mean, Charles Leclerc, comfortable off the start of the Japanese Grand Prix. There has led from pole many times this season. It looks like by the end of lap 1 he will continue on that fantastic run of form there, as Sainz under still a little bit of pressure from Lewis Hamilton. Of course, Lewis knows another big chance at a podium this weekend. Of course, ended up starting from pole position last weekend at Suzuka, and of course the only car that isn't a Ferrari this year to win a race, Lewis Hamilton, all the way back at Monaco. And of course that race was wet. So yeah, there is a very big possibility for Hamilton this weekend, once again, to try and snooker away another race victory, and of course try and close up that points deficit to Sergio Perez in the championship. But Leclerc leads the way comfortably at the end of lap 1. Sainz under still a fair bit of pressure from Lewis Hamilton behind, but I'm hoping our second car is just going to have the pace to try and hang on in front of it. So starting lap 3, DRS enabled, but let's have a look what Kevin Magnussen did down at turn 10. Oh, he did not want to do that. That was lucky there was no car in front of him, otherwise Kevin Magnussen would have found himself and another car in the sandbox. But yeah, I mean, Charles Leclerc, front of the field, they're just starting to walk away a little bit from Sainz, so we're not going to need the team orders at the moment. But Sainz, he can't let his teammate past. Not sure how he's going to have much say over that from 2 seconds behind, but maybe it was costing him ahead of Hamilton. Ooh, there we go. Hamilton has actually moved past Carlos Sainz there. That must have been a DRS move back down towards turn 1. But Sainz, yeah, the only car, if I'm not mistaken, starting on a set of medium compound tyres. So this could work out really well for him if we do start to see the rain arrive. And according to this, 2 minutes from now, there's going to be a 40% chance of rain. So what we need is all those soft compound runners to really destroy their tyres. Sainz wants the rain to stay away as long as possible. But obviously everyone else wants it to arrive ASAP. As Sainz is thinking about a move up the inside of Hamilton back down towards turn 1. It's just got so much grip, but not this time. And there we go then. We're going to just see Carlos Sainz make a carbon copy move of what Hamilton did on him a couple of laps ago. Max Verstappen, though, already back up into P4 of this Grand Prix there, just behind Lewis Hamilton now. So Sainz is going to have to run away a little bit, but this is what I love now, of course. Finally, now they've patched up the tyres on F1 Manager, Sainz has got to be really strategic with what he's going to do over these next few laps. Apparently you can't leave the drivers pushing too hard on their tyres, so we have just got to micromanage it a little bit, but we want Sainz to build up a gap over Hamilton behind, and of course over Verstappen as well, of course. And there we go, fast forward on to lap 8 already. This race unfolding rather rapidly. Zhou Guanyu running wide down at turn 13. He's... I mean, you can't do that, Zhou Guanyu, and that's been a roadblock there. Very interesting manoeuvre from Zhou Guanyu, and that's why we've suddenly got a huge gaggle of cars a little bit further back there. As Mick Schumacher apparently runs wide down at turn 3, but this is bumped Perez already up to P10 in this Grand Prix there. So Checo is flying on his set of the soft compound tyres, but apparently now there's only a 30% chance of rain over the next few laps, so this is helping Sainz out. But of course he does definitely still want to see rain today, I would imagine. He just wants it to occur after everyone else has pit. Oh, here we go. Right, now we're going to have to start managing things a little bit more. Sainz still looking pretty comfortable on those medium tyres there. Verstappen has finally now got the move done on Lewis Hamilton, but the rain is inbound here at Suzuka. You can see that the sky is looking a bit more overcast, so we are going to have to try and manage this, but how heavy is it going to rain and how soon? Well, I mean, we've got very low track rubber anyway, but track grip is looking pretty normal. Things are certainly going to get interesting, but at the moment, Leclerc has built up a handy little 6-second margin over his teammate. It does, of course, also mean if we have to double stack, then that shouldn't cost us too much, but yeah, closing in, well, we've just gone over 20% race distance here. There is still a lot to unfold and unpackage. And there we go, just one lap later, there is now an 85% chance of rain over the next couple of laps. So it's, yeah, really looking like a case of when rather than if. We may as well just get Sainz to push on those tyres. As Leclerc, I mean, it's pretty much perfect for Leclerc if it does start raining out, because this would be right when he wanted to pit. But Sainz has just got to continue pushing on, as Hamilton is still battling Max Verstappen further behind there. You can see Verstappen having to come back at him down towards turn 1. So Hamilton feeling confident in that Mercedes there. Of course, can't really defend against a Red Bull down the straights, but seems to be able to come back at him lap after lap. Oh, and here we go. Lap 14. The rain is here. So is it worth immediately boxing Charles Leclerc onto a set of the intermediate compound of tyres? Let's confirm that, lock it in. I mean, that rain is already starting.
So box.
I think, yeah, it's a wise call to get both cars in onto a set of intermediates sooner rather than later here, because that rain is just going to get worse and worse over the next few laps. I hope we're not doing this too early. But, I mean, it's a bit of a gamble putting both cars into the pit lane at the same time, but that rain is looking pretty heavy. I mean, yeah, it's just going to get worse and worse, of course, like we know, over these next few laps there. So here comes Carlos Sainz into the pit lane. Charles Leclerc already in. Are we going to see anyone else then? Yes, we are! That's always reassuring that other cars are into the pit lane as well. There's 2.2 second stop for Leclerc. That's what we want to see from the team. Hopefully Sainz can get similar treatment. 2.5 for Sainz. Not bad, but not great either. As Esteban Ocon braving it out for another lap here. George Russell doing the same. So perhaps Mercedes a little bit worried about double stacking. But Leclerc's still going to be out the front of the field here. Sainz is going to re-emerge just behind, I think, Ocon and George Russell here. But surely they're going to just fall off the circuit pretty much immediately here. As we'll try and ride on board with Carlos Sainz there. Look at that immediately. George Russell and Esteban Ocon have got nothing as we head through the S's here. But Sainz has to make the moves happen because, of course, he's just going to lose time to Leclerc. And Verstappen and Hamilton are going to be able to close in on him. So Sainz needs to go aggressive here. Come on, to the outside through Dunlop, Sainz, please. Got to make it happen there as he does slip past one of them. He's just got so much more pace. It's like they're sitting still at the moment. As a little bit touch and go there as he has a look. Surely he can make this one move up the inside of the second Degner. But look at this. George Russell now trying to hold off Max Verstappen. I mean, it's going to be to little or no avail there as Verstappen almost... I mean, what on earth is going on just further behind? George Russell there sat in the way of the Dutchman. And surely he's just going to let his teammate Lewis Hamilton by as soon as possible. There is Ocon now trying to throw in a rather mean block on the Dutchman as well there. But both our cars still at the front of the field. We've just got to monitor if it's going to get too wet as well. But the rain's still falling here as Hamilton now has slipped past his teammate as well. I mean, it's shades of George Russell being on the wrong tyres again, just like Singapore yesterday. But Hamilton and Verstappen, they're both trying to look for a move past Esteban Ocon here. Lap 15 of 53. As I mean, down the straight, surely that Alpine isn't going to be losing too much, but you've got to be rather brave to keep your foot in and dry tyres in what is getting very, very quickly some very, very wet conditions here. Through 130R, somehow Ocon will hang on to that place again as Hamilton now going to try and have a look up the inside of maybe one car, maybe the pair of them, down in towards the Casio triangle here. Will Hamilton pull off the move on Max Verstappen there? The Dutchman's still trying to hang on. Both of them will want to try and look past the car in front, but Verstappen there just gets released ahead of Hamilton still. This is brilliant racing between the two 2021 championship protagonists, but that has massively helped out Ferrari. We have suddenly now got a 17-second lead for Carlos Sainz ahead of the Red Bull and the Mercedes man, and Charles Leclerc 30 seconds ahead of anyone that isn't in the same car. Sebastian Vettel apparently locking up down at turn 10. What's happened to Seb? Similar thing to Kevin Magnussen. Yeah, identical. He kept it out of the wall that time, so he did better than others have done so. But the rain now already starting to ease off just a little bit. So everyone's still struggling in these conditions. We had quite a large deluge immediately, as Lance Stroll apparently has done the same thing as his teammate. But we know now it's going to require basically about a milliliter of water on the, sorry, a millimetre of water even, I should say, before it's worth making the switch onto the Inters. So Sainz has just got to stay out here as well as Charles Leclerc, but we are going to have to monitor that dampness. I mean, look at that. Kevin Magnussen and Alex Albon on full wet tyres. Is it still getting drier and drier here? So surely that is not a wise choice by both of those teams, but yeah, track is still slowly drying out a little bit, but I think it's just meant to get wetter and wetter again, isn't it? Yeah, over the next few laps, so it's worth just braving it out for the moment. This is just a little bit less water on the circuit, but this is so difficult to try and work out what on earth's going on in this race there. As I mean, we've got so much data still on F1 Manager. I love this game so much. It's such a nerd fest, and I really can't wait to jump in when we've got a bit worse of a team, of course, next season, when we're really going to try and start thinking about a few things a bit more. Actually, don't know why I've done that. Don't need to worry about that at the moment. We've got a long way to go and plenty of time to save some fuel. It is just going to be a case of watching whether other cars box onto full wets, because the track, I can't imagine, is going to get much drier than this. As there we go, immediately, look at that, 1 lap later, the rain is pouring once again, and the track water is just going up there. So Mick Schumacher has opted to box onto what I'm guessing is going to be a full set of wet compound tyres. The problem is I don't know what the cut-off point is between inters and full wets around this circuit. I mean, it's looking pretty touch and go at the moment. It's just getting worse and worse. So I might bring in just Sainz this time round onto a set of the full compound of wet tyres. We'll leave Leclerc out 1 extra lap there and just monitor the gap. But this is, yeah, getting still very difficult to try and predict here at Suzuka. As, I mean, Mick Schumacher, no, he stayed out on inters and he's got nothing on those tyres. So I've got no idea what's going on then at the moment. Do we just leave Sainz out? Do we wait for other cars to make the call? I think we... Yeah, no, we'll try it still. We'll gamble it still, as track conditions has changed to wet. So does that just mean DRS has been disabled, or does that mean we all need to be boxing onto a set of full wet compound tyres there. I mean, the track is still getting worse and worse. So, Sainz into the pit lane, so we'll just monitor what happens with that gap. He'll probably re-emerge actually behind Verstappen in this Grand Prix there, as let's hope for a nice, clean, tidy stop there as all. There we go, Red Bull are out in the pit lane as well. So is Verstappen diving in? Yes, he is. So maybe Sainz has absolutely finessed this one. We'll just get confirmation as to what tyres Verstappen and Hamilton are both planning on going onto here, unless they're just trying to copy us, as that is a set of the full wet tyres as well for Max Verstappen. So Sainz is going to re-emerge then back onto the circuit, but I think, yeah, everyone else is boxing again, so we're going to bring Leclerc in at the end of this one. Luckily, of course, he has got a rather large gap at the front of the field, but Leclerc's starting to struggle. Is that gap already coming down then in this Grand Prix there? The interval, yes, it absolutely is. So, yeah, Carlos Sainz there is going to take a bit of time out of Leclerc, but surely it won't be enough to make a huge difference. As here we go then, Charles Leclerc even into the pit lane one lap later. But I guess the only other thing we've got to really consider, of course, is... Oh, no, we got a fair bit more of heavy rain in this race. I did wonder whether it would be worth trying to brave it out on a set of the intermediate tyres there. But I mean, Leclerc's lost a good 5 seconds on this lap, so he will still re-emerge in the lead of the Grand Prix there. Sainz still just a few seconds back. But, yeah, I mean, Leclerc's done pretty well comfortably early on in this race. He's still going to have a fair old lead, actually, as he re-emerges out of the pit lane. But Sainz is not going to give up on this one just yet. Of course, any mistake as well could really damage both our drivers' chances. But everyone now, by the looks of it, boxing onto full wet tyres. So it is still touch and go here as Ocon and George Russell, once again, for whatever reason, have been hung out to dry. But that means, look at this, Bottas right behind them might immediately go on the offensive here as we head back down in towards 130R. They're almost 3 wide in the rain. You do not want to be doing that, lads. That is never going to end well there, as Bottas might try and pull a move off on the man that replaced him down at Mercedes. We've seen this happen a few times this year, but I think he'll just slot in for now and wait for them both to peel into the pit lane at the end of this lap, which it looks like they both are going to do. So Bottas will be unleashed and up into P5, as the rain already starting to get a little bit less, but I don't think it's going to make a world of difference. So I'm just a bit confused. Bottas now back into the pit lane, so is he bolting on a set of inters again? Let's have a look what Bottas is doing. Yes, so Bottas onto inters once more in this Grand Prix. I was going to say the Haas cars are both on inters, but I wasn't really sure why. Looks like Williams made the call much earlier than everyone else, but is it? It's not worth it, surely, because it's just going to get wetter and wetter. It's meant to get a bit drier again. This is just impossible. Do we box onto inters again? I think we're going to have to, aren't we? I mean, you've got to be on the right tyres at the right time. Leclerc's missed that call. But do we bring Sainz back in? We'll box him onto a... No, because I don't reckon... Yeah, we may as well box him onto a used set of tyres. But track's meant to get drier again now for a few laps. But then get wetter again later on? I don't really know what we're doing here, but I'm not convinced either way it's the right thing to be doing. But we're going to bring Sainz back in. We're just going to follow what other cars are doing. Leclerc, we're going to hang out there. He's got a bit of an advantage at the front of the field anyway. I guess the real question is, what are we going to see Verstappen do at the end of this lap? Are we going to see the Dutchman back into the pit lane? No, we are not. So Sainz is going to be on a different strategy now to Max Verstappen. And I'm looking at that rain. It is not getting much better. What is Bottas doing in terms of pace? Please don't say Bottas is under pressure from the cars behind. Bottas is still hanging on ahead of Ricciardo, but we'll have to monitor that gap there as Sainz will re-emerge just ahead of Lewis. I'm really going to have to monitor this as well. No! No, 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 no. It's getting much wetter again. It's getting much, much wetter. We're going to have to box Sainz in again in this Grand Prix there as we cross over lap 27. I thought the rain was meant to be a few more laps out, but apparently it's just staying heavy rain at the moment. So I'm so sorry to Carlos Sainz there that we're going to have to box him once again in this Grand Prix. It is, well, it's not quite turning into a disaster just yet, but it's not great. As Zhou Guanyu is come back out on... Zhou Guanyu's come back out on inters. I've got no idea what to do at this stage of the Grand Prix. What is Kevin Magnussen going to do? Please say he's going on to full wet. This is just anarchy. Here at Suzuka, nobody knows what to do. Everyone's trying different strategies here. I mean, if this was a real Grand Prix, you would have seen the wet tyres, and the FIA would have stopped it, but Magnussen's gone on to full wet, but Haas have often seemed to have ballsed up the strategy today, hence why they're in last. Sainz now has lost the place to Hamilton, so we definitely need him to box, but I've got no idea what's going on here. As the track now again just starting to dry out. Oh, what was that going on? Nothing to worry about. But, I mean, it is still meant to stay quite wet for the next few laps. It is only at about lap 45. We could see a transfer back over to dry tyres. But that, of course, is only if the track dries out enough. But Sainz still sat P4. I'm going to get him just to push on a little bit to try and close up for those cars in front. But I'm so sorry. Look at that for a disaster. Mediums, inters, wets, inters, and then straight back onto full wets again. I mean, we've just got to keep Sainz out here and hope that he can still finish P2 today, but 40 seconds behind Max Verstappen. He has had a fantastic recovery so far from his earlier woes, but Leclerc's still 25 seconds up the road. I'm still so confused as to what's going on. Now we've got more cars boxing onto Inters again, but isn't it just meant to get wetter once more over these next few laps? It is meant to be heavy rain still for the next few, so I think I'm going to leave both cars where they are. I mean, whatever I seem to do at the moment just seems to screw Carlos Sainz, but is Verstappen now closing up on Leclerc still? Let's just keep monitoring these gaps. I think he is. Verstappen 47 seconds back, 46.8, and Sainz still holding pretty level. Everyone else is boxing onto Inters. Every other car now is on intermediates again, so we're going to have to do it. Whether it's the right call or not, we're going to have to bring... I cannot believe I'm boxing Sainz again in this race. I mean, Leclerc is boxing next lap. But Sainz, of course, is going to get a chance to box the end of this one. But Verstappen again making an earlier call. Hamilton still hung out there at the moment. But this is just such a weird Grand Prix to try and keep tabs on. I mean, maybe it would have just been worth leaving Sainz out on that set of the intermediate compounded tyres there. Perhaps we did panic a little bit too much and it was only going to be a few laps of pain. But we have Ferrari strategied it once again for at least one of our cars today. Leclerc still out in front. I mean, out in front by quite a wide margin still at the moment. 46 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen, so we'll lose a couple of seconds through this pit strategy cycle. But yeah, as long as Sainz re-emerges ahead of George Russell again, which is... it's definitely going to happen now, because Russell into the pit lane there. Sainz still in P4 in this race, but that could be quite costly in the championship. He's got to try and push on and close up to Hamilton and Verstappen again. There's Leclerc into the pit lane as well, with just under 20 laps to go of this race. It has been chaos and carnage and unpredictability so far has been the name of the game here at Suzuka. But Leclerc has weathered the storm up till now and does still lead the way here as 2.3 second stop for Charles Leclerc. One thing has to be said, the pit crew have been fantastic when it's come to pit stops today. Never a foot wrong so far. You love to see it. Wow, Lance Stroll's gone wide at turn 10 again. That's not too surprising at this stage of the afternoon. But yeah, 13 laps to go. Leclerc still hanging on at the front of the field there ahead of Max Verstappen. The gap is still coming down slightly as got someone else has spun out. Who is that around the circuit somewhere? I think it was now for a male. I think it might have been Bottas. Yellow flags out. Bottas down at the Casio Triangle. Let's see what he's done. Tricky conditions still.
They spun the car. What a disaster.
Good spot there, Crofty, but a very, very weird mistake from Valtteri Bottas there. With, yeah, just 13 laps to go here. We're pretty much at 3/4 distance. And Leclerc has led this race right from the beginning. But can he just hang on? It's looking good. But Sainz as well, just really still struggling. Oh, no.
Big crash here.
Big crash. Who's had issues? Don't think... It's not looking like we're going to get a safety car just yet. Gasly off down at turn 11. Bit of a weird place to bin it if it's where I think it is. No, it is just down at the hairpin again. Has he had a lock-up? Just struggling as the track dries out. Yes, he has. And just see the front wing there fly off the AlphaTauri. They've, safe to say, gone through their fair share of front wings this year. But, I mean, look at this. Some of the cars 2 laps down in this Grand Prix. Only up to 6th is still on the lead lap. And Leclerc is not far away from Ocon and Russell, though. We might be get 4 cars on the lead lap by the end of this. Right, there we go. So rain is going to be stopping then. So we're going to try and be brave with Sainz here. We're going to box him at the end of this lap. There is still a tiny bit of moisture on the circuit. Maybe it's still... Actually, yeah, we'll abandon that pit stop for now. We'll leave it a couple more laps, but we will try and bring Sainz in a little bit aggressively here before the end. As yeah, now the gap at the front going back up again, which is reassuring as all. There we go. George Russell thought about lining up a move on Esteban Ocon. I mean, fair play to Ocon in that Alpine, remaining on the lead lap for 40 laps this afternoon. It has been a valiant effort by... I mean, both of those drivers were really screwed early on, actually, by the strategy. But, yeah, we're just going to keep going for now. but we will probably see a changeover back to dries before the end. There we go. Bono just confirming dry line is forming, so we'll use Sainz as our guinea pig here in the remaining few laps, of course. I mean, he's probably going to finish P4 anyway. I've definitely just jinxed him by saying that, but yeah, we're going to bring Sainz in onto a pretty fresh set of the dry compound tyres there. I mean, there's less than a millimetre of water left on the circuit, so surely that is going to be good enough to box him in, but momentarily, Leclerc might be a lap ahead of his teammate. So there we go, Max Verstappen into the pits as well, as Sainz has re-emerged there just ahead of his teammate Charles Leclerc, but we will bring Leclerc in at the end of this one. Temps are climbing, but yeah, less than 10 laps to go. It has been a crazy, crazy race up to now. I mean, Sainz has made 6 pit stops. I think that kind of tells you everything you need to know. But is it worth just getting him to try and push on a little bit towards the end? We'll get him on deploy. But yeah, I'm not convinced he's going to be able to close it to Hamilton by the checkered flag here, as he's still going to be quite a way behind, as we are just going to try and get Sainz to push on here. 7 laps to go of the Japanese Grand Prix, and he is now less than 10 seconds away from Lewis Hamilton. Sainz desperately, at the very least, needs a podium here. He needs to try and stay in championship contention, because, of course, 10-point swing at the moment, even a 13-point swing even, is massive between these two in the championship. Absolutely massive. As Charles Leclerc starts the final few laps of this race, I don't think it's worth it for Sainz. He's just going to shred through the tyres a little bit too much. He's got plenty of space behind him. I mean, everyone else, I think, is a lap down behind Charles Leclerc there. So, yeah, I mean, it's horrible. I hate doing it to poor Carlos Sainz, bless him, but we've just got to try and consolidate P4 here. He will take the faster lap bonus point, I think, so that is going to be a helping hand. But, I mean, yeah, Charles Leclerc still comfortable out in front. But I think, honestly, my drive of the day is still probably Max Verstappen. Brilliant recovery drive from 6th on the grid. Basically made it back to the front of the field immediately. And then has, to be honest, probably been the fastest car today. It just was the fact Leclerc got such a big advantage early on. I'm also just getting a little bit worried. The fact that Carlos Sainz have got him on low fuel and he's still not saving any. So, I mean, we're just going to have to get him to keep conserving, but that might be something to watch out for on the final. Actually, it won't matter on the final lap because, of course, he is still ahead of all those other cars. But Charles Leclerc then starts the final lap of the Japanese Grand Prix. Of course, got redemption in Singapore last weekend. Of course, had those grid penalties and still was able to walk away with the Grand Prix victory there by virtue of just mad pace and a slightly better strategy than Carlos Sainz. I will hold up my hands and admit we have once again Ferrari strategy Carlos Sainz today, but Leclerc, he has absolutely dominated this weekend in Formula 1 return to Suzuka here. 53 laps of racing, and it is going to be 53 laps led by Charles Leclerc here, as long as he doesn't do anything stupid on this final lap, which is always a worry. But the track, yeah, completely bone dried by the end of this one, so it really has been a big, big test, and it's these little things that are super useful, of course, to do and to experience, of course, in this Ferrari career mode. These are the races I wanted in this first season, where we can really try and monitor things and learn the nuances of the game, and especially, of course, now with the 1.08 patch as well, you really do feel like we can go into next season with a new team and really sort of get into the nitty-gritty and enjoy the game for what it was always hyped up to be before it released. But down in towards 130R then, for the final time today, Charles Leclerc, he has absolutely dominated this weekend from Suzuka and will once more extend his lead at the top of the championship there. A valiant effort by Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton and Carlos Sainz there. Every other car at least one lap down come the checkered flag. But Charles Leclerc out of the final corner, he will win here at Suzuka. A fantastic effort by Charles Leclerc there, but we have just got to stay with Carlos Sainz here. Let's quickly watch Leclerc.
Let's take a closer look. Charles Leclerc there, taking home the win.
Just the perfect end to what has been a thrilling race.
But it is not over just yet for poor Carlos Sainz. He's still down on fuel at the moment, so he is going to have to be really, really careful on this final lap here. Just lift and coast everywhere, Carlos Sainz. Like I said, I'm pretty certain he will still finish P4, even if he runs out of fuel. But we made that mistake in free practice on Friday. I really don't want to do the same thing here, as apparently he's still under on fuel there, and it's getting worse and worse into the final few corners. Can I tell him just to use battery to try and potentially save a little bit more fuel on this final lap? I mean, it's a brave call. I don't think you can run these Formula 1 cars, of course, just on ERS. but down in towards the final corners of the Japanese Grand Prix, he's run out of fuel. Sainz is going to run out of fuel here in the final few corners. How has he got worse on low fuel at the end of this race there? Carlos Sainz, please don't break down out in the final corner. Just limp round. Do it, my son. Please, Sainz. Come on, get to the line. Oh, Sainz. I mean, will Lance Stroll give him a push? Please say Lance Stroll will give him a push. I'm not convinced Lance Stroll's going to give him a push there, but... Oh, what a... I mean, that just sums it up, doesn't it? For poor Carlos Sainz there. I think, like I said, he'll still lock in P4, but that is a disastrous end to what was a rough, rough race.
Well, this was definitely Charles Leclerc's weekend. This is a tremendous podium result. It's joy all around for the team. And the Monegasque driver certainly proved his worth with a terrific drive today. Today's competitors gave it their all, but it's going to be those three taking home the big points. I don't think Ferrari will be too disappointed with that result.
That's right, the team really deserves to celebrate this success before looking ahead to the next race.
After an intense weekend, the team ends in first place in the constructor standings.
Coming up next, we'll be crossing the pond all the way to Texas for the twists and turns of the United States Grand Prix.
Well, there we are then, the end of the Japanese Grand Prix there, and it is Charles Leclerc on a 4-stop strategy that walks away with the dub. It'll show Carlos Sainz as a lap down at the end, but I'm just happy he walks away still with those 13 points there. The 6-stop strategy was not the way to go, and I do apologise profusely for that. The only car to make 6 pit stops in this Grand Prix there, but yeah, I mean, Max Verstappen up 5 places. To be honest, actually, Checo Perez is my driver of the day there. From the back of the field to recover to P5 is a phenomenal result there, and Hamilton... Another podium for Lewis Hamilton. He really is just picking them up at the moment. Picking up the scraps quietly, but consistently at this stage of the game there. But no other major surprises. Looking up and down the rostrum, I guess Ricciardo scoring points is normally quite a surprise now in Formula 1. Drivers' Championship-wise, though, it does mean the gap at the top opens up in a big, big way there. Charles Leclerc will be loving that. Carlos Sainz, not so much. 29 points, sorry, as we head out of Japan, but it will be one of our drivers that is world champion come the end of the year. There are only 104 more points available, and yes, Max Verstappen now, 134 points back. It is guaranteed that he will not be world champion this year. The battle of the Frenchmen, Esteban Ocon rejumps Pierre Gasly, and Daniel Ricciardo keeps adding to his points tally. He's closing in on Lando Norris once more. There is Albon jumps Stroll based on count back there. Where did Albon finish the Grand Prix? 14th place there, so that's worrying that Stroll is yet to do better than that this year. Constructors-wise, we're now 304 points ahead of Red Bull as well. That one, like I said, was locked up a long time ago. I think the only real battle we've got going on there is McLaren and Haas still, and Alpine and Alfa Romeo were probably the ones to watch for in the dying stages of this first season. But thank you all so much for watching this video. If you have enjoyed, please do make sure you leave a like, get yourself subscribed as well, and we will return very, very soon with more F1 Manager content. None of these videos would be possible without the help of our channel members, so a massive thank you to all of the names you see on your screens currently for helping support the channel. You can join them by clicking the join button down below, and yeah, thank you once again to everyone that continues all the insane support on my work.